Welcome to Immaculus. At the start of our campaign, Runia's gradual conquest of Arnos has lost momentum after its immortal King Arcturus disappeared and is presumed truly dead, succeeded by Merrick the Mortal, who was young and far more cautious than his predecessor. Generations ago, after a treaty was signed with Rachnia to stay out of the war, Runian forces sailed across the sea to secure a new beachhead for the war at what is now known as the Gorusod Peninsula. Gorusod, the first bastion city in this Runian exclave, was only meant to be a temporary fortress, but grew and expanded into a duchy of its own. Now, generations later, with an uncertain king and high elves from Aneris invading all lands from the northern seas, Arnos barbarians perpetuating the war's endless stalemate, and a land of wild monsters, and who knows what else, the next chapter of Immaculus is about to begin. Every nation and territory in Immaculus can sense a shift in the winds of power, and they are blowing towards this last Runian exclave.
I do this every campaign. I like to get a sense of your character physically and how they behave. So I would like to go around the party here, describe how your character looks, how they behave, and kind of like how they seem. Describe their body language, how they would come off, especially since you're meeting each other for the very first time. What would a stranger pick up on? So let's start with Wolfrun.
Wolfrun would appear very stoic and standoffish. First impression of him, he would look like he had spent a lot of time in the wild without being anywhere near civilization for possibly years. He has slightly protruding brow that makes him look very almost alien to the average person. You can tell he's not very trusting of other people by his body language. He stands really stiff and almost tries to be intimidating, confronted by anyone he doesn't know. A protective stance.
Alright, let's go next to Margarash.
Margarash comes off as a half-orc of a very narrow build, but she has strikingly red skin, and she carries herself in the same way that one would present themselves to a predator, trying to walk as if she's taller or built broader than she actually is. Her face is weathered with a prominent brow and a seemingly permanent scowl.
What about you, Zaid?
So Zaid stands tall as one of kind of uplifted beak, constantly looking down on those who tend to be shorter than him based on just the tallness of his race, but also inner sense of stature. However, there's kind of a sense of looking behind his back that belies an inner insecurity. He constantly has his shield and spear that's emblazoned with a flag of his order with the golden piercing sun upon them. Takes great pride in ensuring that both these symbols are constantly in display. He has still the kind of svelte sheen to his feathers of a young Sacrii, and his eyes are of a piercing, iridescent yellow-green. But he attempts to keep up an air that he has a sense of control and maturity that he may perhaps not have fully grown into yet.
What about you, Nolame?
Nolame is a half-elf who is, on first glance, fairly approachable. If you find him sitting at a bar or at a table, it'll be with a fairly open posture. Walks with a, not like braggart, but a confident sort of gait where it doesn't seem like he's too concerned with the events that are happening around him. Whenever he's fully engaged in a problem, though, sometimes he can come off a bit intimidating with how serious his face gets and how withdrawn he can become. But outside of those moments, he's generally very friendly, and he's more than willing to pick up a conversation with people he doesn't know.
And finally, Coulter.
Coulter is basically unassuming, more or less typical appearing human Runian male, typically seen wearing the robes of apprentice level academic spellcaster, sort of penetrating, intelligent eyes, brown hair, blue eyes, pointed beard, and a mustache. He always attempts to be civil with anyone he meets.
Alrighty. So, everyone here should know why they are in Avondrad right now. But I think the one person who doesn't know why they're outside of their element might be Coulter. So, Coulter, one morning, your duties at the Academy of Natural Philosophy was suddenly interrupted by your instructor, Zam. Z-A-M. He told you, "Coulter, my boy, I'm going to have to ask you to perform a strange duty for me, if that is quite all right." You remember him saying, "Listen, we've heard some strange things, and as you know, politics in the basement have become a bit heightened as of late. There is talk of a new discovery. You're young. Don't take this the wrong way, but people might not assume so much of you. I want you to go into town and see if you can't uncover anything about some sort of magical reasoning for these floods and storms that have been happening recently this week."
Anything you choose to ask of me, Master, of course, I am willing to assist.
Very well. So we will start the game in the Horned Raven, the kind of generic, most popular tavern in town. This is the capital of County Avon, Avondrad, nestled in the side of 3 steps and cliffs, walled in from monstrous orcs and dangerous animals and barbarous bandits. Recently, however, dangerous activity in the forest has suddenly stopped. Let's just pretend that this succubus demon is the half-orc. So remember, she has red skin. Now this is odd.
Yeah,
Red-skinned orcs are unheard of.
Okay.
The red ones go faster.
That's just a rumor.
No, that's science.
Is that what these flame tattoos on my legs mean?
Yes.
Coulter, you happen to arrive at the same time as a red orc who's drawing gazes left and right, seeming to go in the same direction as you are. This is the largest tavern that you're aware of. You've been here perhaps once or twice before, but maybe you mostly like to stay inside of the academy. Greeting you is a beggar who holds out his hands, palm facing you. "A copper piece, please," he begs, and then kind of shrieks away from the half-orcess.
I try not to stare, but I'm an ever curious observer, so my eyes go kind of wide, like, and then I look to the beggar, fish around to see if I made change to toss him.
You give him like a copper or something?
Mm-hmm.
He scrambles for the coin. "Oh, thank you. Rune bless you. Oh, fancy robes." And you can see him kind of putting himself between you and the woman who's behind you.
I wave my hand in front of my nose a bit, just the effervescent odors of the city.
The man sniffs himself, as if making sure that it wasn't coming from him, and it was.
And I sort of just try to move on and not really engage in conversation with this gentleman.
I'm watching the robed figure walk away from the beggar, and I begin to approach the very smelly individual. I want to stare him down.
He takes a step back and looks over his shoulder as he steps in the mud and smiles at you nervously, finally bringing up the courage for him to hold out his hands in a similar way, though you're wearing less than him.
I look at his open hands and I start stepping a bit closer, and I meet his gaze as one of my hands reach for one of the simple hand axes on my hip. I grip the haft and I hold it aloft and I firmly place it in his hands, and I return his nervous smile with a sneer in kind.
So
If you are going to spend your life begging, you can at least put yourself to good use. Learn to take what you don't have.
His trembling hands awkwardly clutch the proffered handle, and he's kind of desperately looking towards the wizard as if asking for silent help. What do you mean? Please, I don't want any trouble.
Maybe my words are wasted on you.
He nervously tries to accept what he assumes to be a gift, and looks down at the axe as his other hand clenches it, like it's the only possession he's ever held before, and says, "I am Samuel. Who are you? What are you?
I puff out my chest and widen my stance, and I bellow with a bit of pride in my voice. I am Margorosh, daughter of Gorosh, son of Ogren, and I have given you a chance to fight for what you want, instead of begging in the mud like some dying dog. Your destiny is in your own hands. And I decide to push past him towards the tavern.
Samuel, if that is his name, is left looking down at the newly accepted hand axe. He looks dumbfounded and shocked, but also changed in some way. And after a glance to Coulter, he wanders off.
As I'm walking along the path, I stop on my left foot and slowly turn to look back at the robed figure.
What time of day is it?
It is midday.
Kind of looking around for any guards, and I'm rubbing my beard, thinking to myself, "What are the laws on brandishing weapons in the streets here?" I'm thinking this to myself, like,
You've lived in Avondrad almost all your life.
Yeah.
You know that this is almost the edge of the frontier as far as anyone else is concerned.
Okay.
The forests are dangerous, and it's common for a man to carry his weapon as commonly as he carries his tools. There are no guards that you can see. However, in the distance, both of you can spy what might be a child standing next to the door with a bucket. Coulter, do you meet this woman's gaze? Morgarash. She looked back at you.
yeah, I just, okay, so nod, a greeting. I was just gonna say, welcome to Avondrad.
Avondrad. I just roll the word around in my mouth, and I look him up and down. I sort of quirk my brow and turn my head away, and I start to make my way towards the door.
As you approach the entrance to the Horned Raven, a young boy who was looking quite bored, you can see a bunch of mud balls at his feet that he must have been making, approaches you.
Hi. Do you have any animals to be stabled?
I look at the boy, and then I take a look to each side, my left and right. And then I look back at him, and do I look like it?
He starts to stammer, unable to meet your eyes. So he looks at your strange weapons. He looks back behind him to check for any animals, unsure what the right answer might be.
No? I'm sorry.
Will that be all?
He hastens away, suitably intimidated, or at least unsure of how to react.
Assuming there's no one else to stop me, I head inside.
Alright, the doors close behind the red half-orc. You've seen this boy around town before, Coulter. This is Peter. He's the local stable boy. He kind of huffs and stretches, and then said,
I've never seen anyone like her before. Who was that? How do you know her?
We have only just met.
Is she a demon?
My beard. Young boy, sometimes it is best not to ask such questions.
I don't understand. She looks, I don't know, like a monster.
Again, I say, young Peter, best to focus on your duties and just take care of yourself.
He blushes and shrugs and kind of starts to saunter away. Noticing there's not really anyone approaching, he might be heading towards the stables at the gate of the city.
I don't have my familiar with me either, so I couldn't, say, here, stable my pet. He's not with me right now.
Hedwig. All right, that's the session. Just kidding. Were you going to say something?
My character's basically trying to focus on the task at hand, but if it's to gather some information, I would like to stop the boy and ask him about.
So, it's strange. There have been a lot of out-of-season floods and storms recently. It's at least 2 months past the rainy season, and things should start drying up. There was also a tremor as well, and people have been talking about mudslides further north. They've been so frequent that people have been concerned about traveling. Your master, Zam, suspects there might be something magically involved. You know as well that there have been rumors about some strange goings-on in the forest. Maybe some people of the old faith might be up to something. At least that's what your masters have been whispering.
Before you go, young Peter, have you seen anything stranger than this red orc?
Strange how?
The weather has been mighty unseasonable, don't you agree, young lad? It's been raining an awful lot. Have you had...
Yeah, I guess so, huh? And my mom doesn't say I can go outside.
that brings strange customers in from the wilds. I hope you and your mom are taking care of yourselves and being safe.
Yeah, it's not fair. Pesk gets to go out to the forest every night. My mom wouldn't even let me stay up that late.
What's this?
Oh, another kid my age. Pesk.
He is your friend, then?
He shrugs and nods.
Yeah, I guess, but I can't ever go out and hang out with him in the forest. It's so stupid. Goes out there every night.
Then he nods to the east.
I look over there.
It is the Ibindu Forest, a wild and dangerous land.
Well, young Peter, I believe that you are most wise to avoid the forest. There's not a place for a young lad to be wandering, especially in these times. You just focus on your job and taking care of your mother, you hear?
All right.
He seems frustrated that another adult would deny him what he wants so badly.
I toss him a copper piece.
Whoa! Thank you.
You're doing a fine job, lad.
Do you want to ask Peter anything else?
I think that was sufficient.
Margarash, you enter the room, and everyone looks at you. They stare. For a moment, the kind of rotund man with the blue cape, who is enjoying a drink with blonde hair and balding at the bar, goes for a dagger that was previously well concealed until he flashed it. Then, upon kind of sizing you up, he lets go and returns to his drink. Eventually, people get used to your presence. There is some extra murmuring now. Wolfrun, you notice the same thing, but know why. A red orc. You've never seen one before. Half-orc, though she may be. I'll kind of give a description of this tavern as well. It's dark, dimly lit, but it's warm. There's plenty of fire around. It smells like kind of smoke and good food, good fatty, greasy food. There are supposed to be pillars. I didn't actually put them in. They are decorated. They're like totem poles, carved totem poles, unpainted. You can see that a craftsman, an artisan, is working on adding another face, which looks strikingly like the man behind the bar. This place must be the center of most of the common merriment in town, because it is noon. These people surely aren't mostly farmers, so this isn't even the busiest time of day. It must be a popular spot. Margarash, you see a lone man to your right, and music coming from the room kind of area to your right, and you see most of the people are trying to ignore you, but there is a wealthy, I don't know if you can see him past the pillar, but a dark-skinned man is looking at you in finely dressed clothes from across the room as if studying you. So, Coulter, you might notice some of the very same things. These people you know, although you're not a very outgoing guy or anything, but you can recognize their faces, even though you might not know who they are. However, I don't think you would know Wolfrun, the man to your right. He might be a new face to you.
I look around the tavern freshly after having eyes on me, and it does visibly make me anxious, like hair standing on end, but I sort of brush past those feelings and make my way further in and down these steps and begin to approach the bar, purposely next to this balding gentleman that threatened to stab me.
The man is drinking something from an unlabeled jar, a glass container of some sort. He has a kind of sway about him, so there's a familiar alertness in his eyes. He smiles at you and says, "Seats taken."
I look towards the empty seat and then back at him, and I slowly pull the stool away from the bar and place it beside the gentleman so I can move closer to the table. And then I look back at him briefly before turning towards the bartender himself.
He gives you the stink eye. One eye big, one eye small, and sneers before downing more of his drink. He doesn't turn away, though. He kind of just looks at you. The barman meets your gaze. He's cleaning a cup, and he wanders over to you.
As I was watching that unfold, I would have picked up the silver coin that I have sitting in front of me on the table, and I would walk to the bar where these two were engaging, and after the half-orc sits down, I would actually lean over to the bartender and offer to buy the half-orc a drink while saying, "What brings you into town?" And then also glaring over her shoulder at the man who is being insulting.
He sneers at you just as hard. You know this man. He's Lodwig Rosewood. He's the son of the captain of the militia, a local drunk.
As I'm waiting for the bartender to go ahead and respond to my trying to get their attention, I go ahead and look Ludwig in the face and say, Ludwig, you're in early, I see.
He narrows his eyes at you and then gives you a once-over. Though normally he would perhaps belly up to you in a threatening manner, he seems to like his distance, especially with this unknown half-orcess. Untitled boys, what are you doing here this early? Just repeating the same thing you said back to him. It was clear that he may be deep in his cups already. At the same time, the bartender, Bruno, what'll it be? Asks.
Bruno, another tankard for myself and one for my friend here. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Are you new to town? I turn over looking back at the half-orc.
I turn my head and look at the only person so far actually being a gentleman or even remotely friendly. Once more, I puff out my chest, peacocking, as it were. Margorosh, daughter of Gorosh, son of Ogrin. I'm only here to learn more about the area.
I give her a smile and say, well, Margaret, it seems that you're not alone in this. I also am looking for more information from some of the more sober-minded individuals in the community, and I've just come in for a drink after some hard day's labor. I hope after you've had some time to get familiar with the town that you would be so kind as to come and talk to me about what you may have learned, and maybe we could compare our notes.
I do not think I got your name.
Ah, of course. My most sincere apologies. It is most rude to ask for another's name before offering your own. I am Nolame Endoris.
As soon as you say your name, mid-sentence, something catches your advanced eyesight. Out of the corner of your eye, you see someone look up. It was that bald man. You've seen him around town a few times before, but not with his face revealed. He's looking at you, and you can tell it was as soon as he heard your name.
Then I would, without giving any sort of response, just turn back to the half-orc, smile, and say, I wish you well on the rest of your day. And then I would pick up my tankard and walk back to my table, smiling pleasantly to myself.
Bruno lifts his furry brow. I thought he was a friend of yours, he says to the half-orc.
I watch him depart and then look back toward Bruno and reach for the tankard. He is, I lie blatantly.
Well, not that it's any of my business, but might be good that you do have a friend or two in this town, because I think there's a few enemies you might have just made. And then he looks towards the other neglected part of the room, the opposite end, where 3 Racnian spiders are staring at you, with angry, glaring eyes, speaking among themselves.
It's by the hearth.
I'm not unfamiliar with such gazes, but if you would be so kind to tell me a little bit more about Vondrad, maybe the area around beyond the wall, and I take a sip.
I can do my best. He seems to tighten up visibly. All right, Zaid, what were you going to say?
I would have Zaid ask his compatriot here what was taking the confessor so long to arrive at the tavern.
He chuckles at you while he sips his wine. You actually think they were going to come here? You're hilarious.
What? Of course I thought they were coming here. I came all this way after all. What, are they gonna just stiff one of the members of the Holy Order?
I don't think you understand things, Zaid. This is Avendrad. They expect you to go to them. Sorry.
What, and just appear at the temple like some commoner? Without a retinue?
Look, I'm sorry. Why didn't you choose to come with a retinue?
Sending an entire series of my brothers of the Order would be highly irregular.
They wanted to... well, what do you call it? Put on airs. I think they want to, remind you of your place. They,
Most irregular.
I know, that's the way things are. They want to send a message. And today the message is, the Temple of Rune is in Runia.
Well then, if you'll excuse me, I suppose I have some preparations to make on my own.
I don't get it. What preparations?
Need to get some food in my belly and some provisions and get myself out, send some messages back to the homeland, finally make my way down to the temple on foot like some commoner.
Look, relax. This is how we humans do things. It's all political. You gotta think like a human now, especially with the king gone. Everything's a sign, a show. I would recommend thinking deeply about how you approach the church.
Everything was done with so much more decorum and regularity before the king passed.
Some people think it's an excuse to change things up, I think.
I suppose this was the purpose of my mission in any case, to document and see how events are unfolding.
Well, let me give you a hint then. Little piece of advice. He leans forward. There's been some trouble keeping the faith here in Avendrad. The king, Merrick, has been a little lax in his understanding of the laws that we so understood about the faith. It seems more people are adopting the old ways. Could be a way to appeal to the respect of Canon Basil.
I'll level with you. You've been in these parts far longer than I have. Stares off into the candlelight, allowing it to flicker across his shield as he looks down upon it. The Order of the Piercing Light does not have as much sway and influence outside of our lands as it once did. You've been a good friend to my people. How do you suggest that I project strength and assurity to these people?
He holds his well-shaven jaw. You've come with the answers. Look, if you approach Canon Basil with questions, he'll take that as a sign of weakness. He wonders just as much as you what the Sacri place in these lands truly is. It's about how you make the first move that matters. So, what I recommend, maybe you have some sort of advice to how to rein these people in who are having struggles with their faith. I don't know if you know too much about that. I know you're a knight more than a preacher, but there's some other stuff too. There's been some floods and strange storms. I think a lot of people are drawing the connection between the rule of the king. It's not right, but I really don't know what to do.
Zaid plucks a little bit at some of the feathers underneath his beak, thinking for a moment. Perhaps a display of Rune's grace would be the answer to some of these problems, as well as to show the canon the faith that is still shown upon the Sacri people. You've given me a good deal to think about.
Of course. The way the nobles do things in this land is, what have you done for me lately? The church works exactly the same. As sad as that is.
I believe you've told me, even just in this short interaction, quite a bit more than I was expecting to hear from the confessor. I think it might be time for me to start making my way out and taking care of this business.
Oh, and Zaid.
Yes?
Confessors are known for their memories. Be careful what you say.
Avid advice as always. Thank you.
He drinks to your health and then starts stealing from the preparations of the next feast.
As he walks by my table, am I able to glean anything of significance?
This is one of the strange Sacri. They rarely leave their valley to the north. They are the only race of beastmen who has ever dealt with the kingdom of Runia. Usually, when Runia conquers land, they crush races of beastmen. Maybe they see them as too barbaric or monstrous, or there's too much of a cultural divide between them. However, it is common knowledge that when the king of Runia, who was conquering this land, set foot in the Sacri Valley, he discovered strangely that they worshiped the same god. He took this as a sign, and peace was ushered in quite quickly. But as the king, who was the leader of the church, is no longer around, it is left to question, where did the Sacri, who were so religious, fit into the church? Or the kingdom of Runia at large? Are they allies, or are they a vassal state? It could be that this man is just exploring, or on some sort of holy quest. It is uncertain.
His features may be too strange to me, but am I able to, glean anything of his disposition as he's walking past? I would have probably noticed him whenever either I or he came into the tavern for the first time, but now that he's getting up and moving about, perhaps I can glean a bit of at least the tenor of his conversation back there.
So he is walking with a sort of heavy footfalls, something you are trained to recognize. It is indeed hard to gauge Sacri facial expressions, but he does look frustrated or perturbed.
So unless I'm going to be stopped, I'm going to be heading towards the bartender in order to close out the tab that was meant for me and the confessor. So Zaid will kind of move his way through the crowd up to the bartender, kind of like sneering at the folks he has to get in close contact to.
Wolfram, this is the first time you have ever seen a Sakurai.
Indeed it is.
The same is true for Coulter.
Barman, I'd like to close that tab after all.
He raises a brow. Your friend not show up?
No.
Very well. Perhaps. And then he looks at Margarash. You might be able to help him somehow. He seems very concerned with pairing Margarash up with someone for some reason. And then his gaze kind of every so often flits to the north and west.
So Zaid will look back and frown for a moment, and I think he'll ask if the bartender has any parchment available and access to a sending bird of some kind so that he can send out a message.
I am blatantly staring the Sakurai down, sort of being a hypocrite. You know, I get all of these looks in most places I go, and now I'm giving them to...
Oh, that's great.
Right.
Coulter, this guy seems kind of important.
Sorry, did the bartender mention anything about the paper sending birds?
He kind of chuckles and says, My lord, I only have trained servants. I can get one of the ladies here to help you run a message.
That's not going to be nearly fast enough.
He's a ranger, I think, around here. Might be able to get him to run something. What do you need?
I need a message sent out to my people out in the valley. Faranrii?
Wolfram, you notice that the bartender's making eyes at you. It seems like he may be talking about you.
Do you need something, barkeep?
He waves you over. He also waves over Coulter, too, seeing that the man is just milling about. Come in. This is the Lord, what was it?
My name is Zaid Azar, Knight Tutelar of the Piercing Star.
You might need a bit of a woodsman.
Is this the drab individual you're speaking of? I don't see any falconry expertise in his manner.
Standing out in the wilderness gets you killed.
Begging your pardon, sir, but I don't think any falconers would be around these parts except for maybe Cinder's Tower or the castle.
Well, that's where I must go. If I'm to send a message that will arrive in my homeland within the day.
There's a man from the academy over there in those blue robes. Think they have a falconer too.
Oh, that may provide most useful then. Although, and Zaid looks to the two individuals in front of him, I wonder if either of you might be interested in making a little coin. I could use a little bit of muscle to act as my retinue.
I came here to ask questions, but what do you need exactly?
I need to project strength in a meeting I am about to attend.
A meeting with who?
The bartender looks at Margarash when you say muscle. And he also looks at Nolame. But the strange thing is, so does Ludwig.
I was about to say what I have actually heard looking for someone in his retinue, because I definitely would have made my way over there after hearing that.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that they're talking about you.
Walking around to see if there's an open enough space here. Nudging aside one of these NPCs, I lean over to Bruno and ask to go ahead and close out my tab. And at the same time, just like I did earlier with the half-orc, I look over and say, it seems like things are picking up over here. I like to be where the action is. Tell me, what services could I potentially offer you, my lord? Because I can see that he's very proud of bearing.
I think Wolfram asked something too, right?
You mentioned that he had questions. That's the last I heard.
Yeah, not from anybody here. I'm just going to ask. Well, actually, now that Nolame's over there, but that can wait for a minute.
At least in response to the ranger, the Sakurai will continue. Appears to have two primary actions of interest as of the moment. One, I must make my way down to the temple to meet with the canon, and for that, I require a sign of my influence. And secondly, I need access to some way to deliver a message back to my homeland within the next day. So something presumably outside of those using merely their feet to traverse. Either those going by wing or by a steed of great spirit.
Well, my lord, trying to navigate quickly among the various paths of the world is not my forte. But if you're looking to lend weight to your words when talking to the powerful of this land, then I can make no better recommendation than to include a scholar of many talents in your retinue. I can speak the local high language as well as many other dialects, and I have some familiarity with the local topography of the area. I would be more than happy to accompany you. Of course, I have to make sure that I don't have any other clients who have already scheduled my time for this day.
What is a local high language, if you may?
Well, that's the funny thing. High Rune Archic is considered to be a more ancient language, and yet I have heard it said that the wise of this area also still use it as their own personal high language.
Ah, I
They use it to
see.
go ahead and demonstrate that they are cultured in the ways of this continent.
I haven't felt the need to learn the language myself, as Riai allows us to converse with our deity more in keeping with our tradition, though I do appreciate those who would practice a language so otherwise closely associated with the Lord of Justice himself. I must say, with your words, you have purchased a great interest from me.
Thank you, my lord. And, if I might be so bold, if you would be willing to, say, front a retainer fee, you would be able to continue to purchase my services as you continue upon your journey.
I suppose I must ask what you and, if the other two here have any interest, are charging for such fees.
Well, of course, there's the matter of my standard rumen, which would be at least a gold piece. Considering that we can't be having a member of your retinue smelling of the sty or sleeping among the horses. And then there would be the second matter of actually paying the retainer fee, which would be another half gold piece a day for a minimum of 2 days. You understand that trying to do simple one-off diplomatic escorts lowers the quality of my name to any retinue that I may be attached to.
I look at the Sacrii and give Ludwig a passing glance before speaking. I have two terms. I only want to know the lay of the land wherever we go. If I have questions, I would like you to answer them. And you need to cover a piece of equipment for me. And I sort of just show off this lackluster ensemble I'm dressed in. The most notable part of my garb is a singular tusk dangling from my neck in a sort of makeshift necklace.
I see. That would be most improper in any case to have someone with my retinue dressed so shabbily. But you do appear to be of strong stock. I think that would be most worthwhile.
You could go over to that tailor's place, I suppose, my lord, but it's just the church, all are welcome, and you know. He seems to be quite ignorant about how things actually work in political matters, even in the church.
One may be welcome without doing themselves any favors in their presentation, you might say. And what of you, traveler?
I would accompany you for the same fee as the man with the bow.
And yet what skills can you provide in such a case?
I know the wilderness around here, and I know how to track.
I'm not sure I have much need for a tracker at the moment. I'm going to be making my way to a temple.
Very well then. If you have no need of me, just dance on this table.
I eye the woodsman for a moment, just look over the bar. I'm taking notes over here by the light of the fire and the warmth.
So as you pass by Ludwig, Wolfrun, and only Wolfrun, you notice that he dropped his apparently insobriety for a moment. And when you were passing, he sort of remembered it and then continued in like his swaying motions and stuff.
Since Zaid isn't exactly super familiar with the surrounding lands, he's going to ask the first potential member of his retinue, who seems quite worldly in such areas, what he thinks a ranger might be useful for, at least in regards to his current mission.
Well, my lord, the most important thing about having a ranger in these lands is that if a service is not readily available in the community that you are in, you will have to pass through some uncertain lands. And while the situations on the roads and in the forest differ from season to season, historically this town has had more than its fair share of those unsavory characters who might waylay a party, or more importantly, waylay a message. I would say that a ranger would be absolutely essential in navigating to one of the surrounding communities should you find that you cannot send a message by air from this one. I would also say that while I cannot speak with any certainty, I would say you should plan accordingly for the geographically fractured nature of this place.
So, other than within the Fenarii Valley, where is the largest temple to Rune probably in this region?
This region being County Avon?
Within the entire peninsula, the Runian Enclave.
Okay,
map.
okay. So the largest temple would be Bateriath. It is a city built around the largest temple.
Sorry, where's that on the map?
On the far left, Bateriath.
Oh, Bateriath. Okay, with a B. So Zaid turns back to Wolfran and makes kind of a click with his beak and uplifts his head a little bit, trying to get his attention.
Yes.
It so happens that there is a potential secondary destination that I may need assistance in traversing to should my meeting in this land not go according to plan. It may be that ensuring your assistance in such a matter may be most fruitful, if you are still yet available.
If you wish to retain me, the fee is the same as this gentleman.
Very well. I will see about making the necessary preparations with my finances.
So I was thinking of then saying to Zahid, my lord, if you would give me just a brief amount of time, I need to go ahead and close up my affairs here. If you know where you and the remaining members of your company will be headed, I would be happy to meet you there as soon as I have concluded the rest of my business here.
Meet us at the tailor and we can see about giving you proper attire.
Very good. Thank you very much, my lord.
Wolfran, you do notice that the man in blue robes kind of like gave you a nod.
I look over to him and nod back.
Pardon me, sir. You have but a moment of your time.
I can.
Well met, my name is Coulter from the Academy. Allow me to buy you a drink, if I may.
I don't drink.
Neither do I. A sober mind scribes twice as fast, you know. I was just wondering, you appeared to be a man of the wilds, and I merely was wondering if you knew of any strange things going on in the forest nearby.
You're going to have to be more specific. What kind of strange things?
Well, it has been unseasonably wet this year, don't you agree?
I suppose, but changes in weather don't really mean much to me.
Oh, I see. Very interesting. What do you think of the strange travelers from abroad that we are seeing here? I see that you are making good company with them.
I'm hoping that by accompanying them, I can have some of my own questions answered. I don't travel in cities often.
Indeed, and I do not travel outside of the city. I had heard that also. Have you been to the north in your travels?
Indeed I have.
We have reports that there were natural disasters and tremors of the earth.
It has been some time, but I haven't been in civilization long enough to talk to very many people from the north. Some time. My travels have led me this way, and I certainly felt no tremors the last I was there. I have noticed the beasts of the forest migrating south in larger numbers, so that would align with what you say of the tremors.
Most intriguing.
I believe you may be onto something, scholar.
I'll raise my brow.
What exactly is it that you're seeking with these questions?
I merely work as an information gatherer for the Academy for whenever there are possible dilemmas of the future. We'd like to plan accordingly and be prepared. So
Do you plan to head into the wilderness from here?
I definitely had not planned on any excursions into the forest anytime soon, my friend.
Yes, your order does seem to dwell within walls better than it does within woods. I have a question to ask of you, if I may.
Absolutely.
I produce an arrow from my satchel and place it on the bar table. Do you know who would have crafted something like this?
All right. I look intently at the arrow.
The ranger you're speaking to, Wolfran, placed down a completely black arrow It looks dusty and sticky at the same time, and its arrow tip seems to be finely made, durable yet almost razor thin.
I just relate that I'm unfamiliar with its origins. It would be something that would need a bit more investigation. We should get more help, perhaps the others at the academy.
You'll forgive me if I don't want to accompany you back to such a place. I remove the arrow from the bar top. Do you mind if I borrow a few pieces of parchment for my employer over here?
By borrow, how will you pay me back? My life is my parchment. I only have so much.
I will give you any information I find regarding your questions.
That is agreeable.
Nolame, the man before you is wearing fine clothes. He seems to be a human of expressed older years, although there is a sort of stance about him that would suggest he is spry and perhaps physically fit. And he nods at you expectantly.
Well then, I go ahead and I sit down casually at the stool, look at him, and say, I don't believe that we've ever talked before, yet it seems as though you recognize me. Might I have a name to put to such a gracious face?
I am Cinder. It is nice to finally make your acquaintance, Nolame.
Well, Cinder, thank you very much for leveling the playing field, since you clearly knew my name before I knew yours. But with that said, maybe you would be then willing to answer a second question of, why do you know my name?
When he introduced himself, you recognize him as a local folk hero. He was the assistant to a famous long-dead wizard, now long dead. He says, I believe we have a mutual friend. He lifts his brows at you.
I respond and say, well, man of my position in the world, and of my disposition, happens to come across many friends. Some very old and dear, some new and fresh. You would have to be a little bit more specific.
He tenses suddenly, pans his gaze around the room, and then takes out a small parchment of paper and puts it briefly, just briefly enough for you to glance at, on the table. You recognize it as an alchemical symbol. It's the sign of boiling silver. He put it away just as quickly, and then studied your reaction.
Ah, so then an old friend of true, although maybe not golden true, background. So tell me then, how can I help you, Cinderman? One who's so famed in this regard clearly has no need of my assistance, but perhaps you could be of assistance to me, is why you approach.
He nods slowly. I think we might be able to help each other. I notice you're talking to some of the foreigners here. Complete whatever business you have with them, and meet me in my tower later. We should have a long talk. Cinder's tower is famous around town, so it shouldn't be too hard to find.
I would be happy to do so, although the retinue that I've taken up with may spend a fair amount of time in the market trying to haggle in order to equip some of our newer members. If you would be able to provide me with a small amount of funds, I'm sure I can move that process along and buy some additional goodwill among them.
The temple is trying to undercut my store as it is, but I think for this cause, it is worth it.
25 gold pieces, along with my own funds, should be more than enough to get them to complete their business within the next day. And I, of course, would return any unused funds, seeing as how we are future partners in a much larger endeavor.
I'm willing to give you 5 gold.
Thank you very much, my good friend and erstwhile future partner. I will go ahead and move along the company swiftly so that I can make our appointment later this evening. Stepping up to the bar to go ahead and do that, and then at the same time, I glance down the bar to try and update myself on what's transpired since I've had my back to things, talking to Cinder this time.
I'm going to look the barman in the eye. I'm going to ask you a question, barkeep.
How may I help?
I pull the arrow out and show it to him. Have you seen anything like this around before?
Most people are hunters around here, so...
An arrow like this, however?
Like that. It looks rather fancy, if you don't mind me saying. All black. Maybe it's an ornament. He shrugs.
I see.
Bruno seems to be a simple man. It's unlikely he's ever seen an arrow of this kind before. Or if he is, he's lying.
Very well.
Could be one of those elven arrows.
Don't think so.
Why, if you don't mind me asking again, sir, why could it be, a bother? Did someone shoot your dog or your horse?
I've been tracking whoever did shoot it. The trail led to this city.
I'll keep my eye out. Don't you worry. Clears his throat.
Can I see the arrow and make anything of it?
Yeah, it looks fancy. It could be just another human affectation. You do know of one tribe who used obsidian arrowheads, but these tips are metal, and the make is way too advanced.
Did I notice him looking over at the spiders at all?
I was going to ask the same thing.
I look over to see if they are still giving their passing glances from when I first walked into the building.
When the crowd around Zaid kind of formed, and when the wizard moved next to the pile of pastries, they turned to themselves, but every once in a while they look back at you.
I would like to first get the bartender's attention, and while ordering 3 mugs, I want to go ahead and ask him how long those 3 have been here, pointing to the spiders, and asking why they seem to be all, why their jammies all seem to be ruffled.
Maybe we should save those sort of questions for when we're not in the tavern.
Oh, they haven't been here for a few days, I think. Normally, one of them, I think, would be recruiting for the Rachnian spiders, but they've just about stopped doing that for now. And word is, they're going south to the Arian. All the Rachnian spiders, actually. Strange business, that.
Any idea why they're heading south?
Could be anything, but maybe they're still recruiting if you want to talk to them.
I think I might just do that. Although, I doubt they'd want someone of my persuasion joining up. I just might do that. Thank you, sir.
Of course, it's not my place, but as for this business with the weather, I think might be a good idea to bring that wizard along. Could be that the only people who can actually do something, from these parts anyway, might be those wizards. They're more useful than praying, or if you ask me anyway.
I give the bartender a long look and say, people are really starting to get a bit spooked about the weather, aren't they? I always thought that it was just easier for folks to go ahead and shrug it off as the ways of the world, but it seems like you all are kind of concerned about things.
We're in a bad spot for a flood.
Yes, but floods and storms and even fires, those are the ways of the world, are they not? Surely the town and the larger county and even the province have survived these things in the past. Why are you all so particularly disturbed now?
I don't know. Seems like a pattern, though. This isn't seasonal. Or maybe I'm suspicious. Maybe I'm buying too much into the word around town. I don't know.
Well, what's the word around town? That you've managed to go ahead and anger some sort of rogue weather deity? I say, chuckling to myself slightly, although keeping an eye on him to see if that strikes anywhere near the truth.
Well, fact is, you know how worship of other religions was outlawed, but good King Maricus sought it within himself to free up on that, loosen up on that a little bit. Well, now that we got all these people claiming that they're of the old ways, people who follow Sylvanus seem to think they have a few answers. I even heard some rough drunks claim that it's connected to the rule of Count Laurel. These aren't good words, treasonous words. But if they're anything true, maybe there's, I don't know, something a wizard might do about it, or one of those wood folk. I can't be clear, but I'm sure the gods, well, we certainly wouldn't deserve to drown.
Except in a mug of your fine ale. Then you wouldn't mind it if we all drowned every day of our lives, I say, but winking to let him know that I'm just playing along. I'm sure that as we're on the road, I might be able to convince at least one of our friends to give these matters some serious thought. But at any rate, I need to go ahead and make my final round of introductions. Thank you as always for being so helpful, my good fellow. Now, as I pick up the drink, as I'm preparing to pick up the drinks, I look over to Margarosh, and then I slightly squint my eyes and touch my hand to one of the daggers on my hip, just slightly, almost grazing it, as I reach for the tankards, and then proceed to turn away, with my eyes clearly fixed on the table of spiders. So, as I'm approaching, what do I notice about their disposition? Because I'm clearly making eye contact with them as I'm doing this.
They are just into their drinking. They must be drinking something watered down, which might be just a procedure for them. They seem to be good friends and in good spirits. Whatever sour mood they were once in, maybe talking bad about the half-orcess. Maybe the conversation has moved. Someone did stab a knife into the table, maybe as a show of force or something. They all have clubs and swords and matching armor with kind of spider-themed, decorations on it. One slowly turns around when he hears when he finally hears your footfalls because they're so graceful. Oi, what is it?
Lads, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to catch you in a more joyful spirit before I had to leave. Getting to go ahead and get the word from soldiers of the wild is honestly one of my favorite parts of my trade, and so I thought maybe I could share a mug of ale with you before I have to be about my way. Now, as I'm saying this, my whole goal of even buying these drinks and bringing them over here was to look around and see if I notice anything of significance, such as if there are any papers on the table or if there's anything just out of the ordinary that I might not have seen from across the bar.
Roll investigation. On the table is a stack of unsigned contracts. You see that one of them is wearing some sort of strange ring. There's a map on the table that's half folded with a map of the area. One of them is wearing an anchor symbol, kind of amulet around his neck, which is the symbol of Anchorrock, one of the cities in the peninsula. And I think that's basically it. They're very strong, kind of a grizzled veterans, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, and then can I tell what their general disposition or reception is to my greeting and offering of drinks?
They rejoice instantly with a cheer, and each take a drink and welcome you to the table.
I cheer loudly in return and take a long drink of my ale. By the way, no one I imagine in the bar has noticed that the other 2 ales I've ordered since getting here sit mostly full back at the table where I was.
A barmaid has brought them over.
Over to me?
Yes.
Fuck, fun to try and get my way out of.
I want to step closer and sit myself on this stool near this happy fellow and Coulter.
Your old
Okay.
friend has returned, Coulter.
I look up from my tome, so, Lady Morgarash, well met again. Try to make
I cant my head and look directly at him. What was your name again?
my sincere apologies. My name, Coulter. I'm a scholar from this city, and bid you welcome.
This city, you mean Avondrad?
Ah, yes, that is correct. It's your first time here, I take it?
I sort of nod and just a wordless response, and my eyes peer towards the fireplace, but I'm trying to look as much periphery I can get of the table behind and beside us without turning to look at them. Just enough to I want to be paying attention.
While that is going on, my attempt to get out of the barmaid, bringing me 2 damn near full tankards of warming ale, is to make a sour face at them, turn to the soldier of the party who was the most vocal in being excited over the free beer, give him a smirk and say, "Do you want to help me down these?" with the idea that we would both each chug a mug of ale.
They accept your offer politely.
Most excellent. All right, so I chug 1 full mug of ale, while the soldier does as well, and this will hopefully free me to just nurse this other mug that I have here, rather than being in a position where I have to quaff 3 of them, one after the other.
The Arachnians begin to drink just as voraciously.
So, lads, tell me, what's the new and exciting news out there? Something that is a bit of a change from all the everyday tavern talk. Give me a good story that I can write down and share with others.
To be honest, we're recruiting the Arachnian spiders. Wouldn't suppose you'd be interested.
Oh, look at these robes. I may have a dagger or two about me. I might be all right with this bow, but really, knowing more about the lay of the social landscape is where I'm most valuable. But I might be able to help you all out if there's something in that way that you need assistance with.
Well,
Can't say
friend.
that I'd be willing to join, but I'm always happy to take on contract work.
If you're up for a travel, there's something around Anchor Rock that needs our attention. Apparently, there's a great gargantula somewhere in the area. No idea how it got there, but all of the Arachnian spiders in the area are being called over there. Because apparently everything is good here. Less monsters here. We're just about to leave.
So are you guys the ones that managed to go ahead and kill all the monsters around here? I know that the Runian spiders have been in the area in the past, but I never knew them to wipe out all the problems in an area so efficiently.
No, that's what's strange. Everything seems to be quite normal, but business has been drying up, as it were.
Well, gentlemen, one thing that I wanted to go ahead and I don't want to take up too much of your time since you're getting ready to head out, but I noticed you were staring at our friend the half-orc over there. Now, as I say that, what are their expressions like? Do they darken?
They sour instantly, yes.
Sour instantly? Like, did you encounter her before? I know some people don't like half-orcs, but that was a quick souring if I've ever seen one.
He lowers his voice, and they all kind of lean in together, starting to sip their drinks instead of chug. Well, to be honest, there's only one place you can find a red orc, and that's Rachnia. They call them the Skinless, or the Bloody Orcs. They have many names, but you only get half-orcs one way.
Rachnia? I thought Rachnia was largely uninvolved still with things on the continent.
What a queer sight.
Well, lads, she's taken up in a party that I'm offering my consulting fee for. And while I can understand why you most civilized folks wouldn't want to go ahead and let her or a number of other folks wander about, it would not look good for me if they were accosted while I was with them. So, as one loyal member of Runia, as yourselves, I ask you, don't bear any open signs of hostility, at least while we're within the walls and I'm a member of their party.
He chuckles, but he still kind of looks to be thinking about his negative thoughts towards her. Hey, listen here, friend. You'd have to pay us good gold to draw our swords. Remember that.
Ah, I will remember that. It may actually be something that I may need to call upon you for in the future if you aren't leaving as soon as this evening.
Oh, before then, my friend.
Go ahead.
Before then, my friend. After these drinks, we're heading to Anchor Rock.
I must wish you well on your way. Should I encounter you out there in the wide world again, perhaps you would be willing to let me buy you all another round of ale, and you'd be willing to share with me some of the more recent adventures you've gone on.
They nod to you and return to the drinks so freely given to them.
So as my back turns to them and I'm walking past Margarosh, I smile and then just with one hand, I just put a palm down, basically to indicate that there we go. Everything went off without getting violent.
I tense at the hand, but just subtly. One hand on the bar counter clenches into a fist, but I accept the gesture and look back at Coulter. Well, it seems that I have to return to, and I peer over my shoulder and continue, my employer, as it were.
I've gone ahead and dropped off my tankards, and I'm making my way also back to our employer.
Well, shall we head ourselves over to that tailor?
Very good, my lord. I'm assuming that I would probably lead the way, right? Since I've been around here for a little bit. Are the other members of the party coming with us since we're going to the tailor?
So, as I get up, I just kick the stool back towards the table, move it, stepping away from it, and I pause, looking at Wolfrun, and then I glance back at Coulter. Are you coming? You seemed familiar to that one, and I point Wolfrun out, just acknowledging that they had had a conversation.
He just asked a few questions. It would be up to our employer if he were to join us. Scholar would come in handy in such a thing.
As me and Zaid are walking towards the door. I don't hear anyone else walking with us, so I turn around and see Margarosh standing with the scholar and lean into Zaid's ear and say, perhaps Margarosh has the right idea. Given the diverse nature of what you're trying to accomplish, it might not be bad to have a true blue scholar. I'm well versed in the ways of courtliness, but the expanded esoteric knowledge may be of value for what we may encounter in the wild or at the temple.
I certainly couldn't disagree there. What was that one's name?
With your indulgences, my lord, I can go talk to our friend Margarosh and make some inquiries before we leave.
I nod my assent.
Very good. Margarosh, I see that you've made some company, but we need to be on our way. Our lord is eager to be about his business.
Oh, I thought this one was coming with us, and I point out Coulter. I thought he was interested, perhaps earning a bit more coin that he can throw away at the poor.
Ah, a fellow man of the world and of courtly honor, I see. I was also looking at you talking to our friend Margarosh here and thought to myself that you might make a welcome addition to my lord's party. I'm schooled in many things, but, well, to be honest, it would not do if some sort of scholarly matter were to arise that I could not help my employer with. I would be happy to share my notes with you. If you are a scholar, surely there are local matters that you would be interested in learning more about.
I do have to say that your plans intrigue me.
Capital, my good friend, capital. Well, then let's go ahead and settle your tab.
I do have to say, I'm currently with the academy. I would have to consult with them, but they have me upon a similar investigation that I must consult with them first before signing anything, of course. But I did say one more piece of parchment, just in case.
Of course, and I mean, for now, at the very least, you could just accompany us as a free member of our party. We would surely benefit from your knowledge, and like I said, if you're on an assignment from your parent organization, a scholarly organization, then we collectively might be able to help you. You could hardly do worse than to throw in with a diverse and well-traveled group such as ours.
Oh, I would be happy to have some accompaniment to the tailor, as I have business there as well. And then we will see.
Excellent, excellent, good fellow. And what was your name again?
My name is Coulter.
Coulter. Great to meet you. I'm Nolame. Well, shall we be off? Zaid is not necessarily the most patient of individuals I am coming to learn. Margarosh, thank you so much, by the way. I lean in closely to Margarosh. Margarosh, thank you so much for picking up so quickly. I didn't know whether that was going to have to turn ugly quickly or not. And then I continue walking along before the conversation can get too extended to become suspicious.
Yeah.
I look almost alarmed from him saying that out loud, so I just start making my way out as well.